What's up, my little firecrackers? Blazing with this, blazing his way into another video. This is What If Deku Was in One Piece, Part 6. Now, a little bit of news. This took me over a week to write this. This covers what is arguably my least favorite arc in all of One Piece because it just felt like they just stretched it out way too much. That's what it felt like to me, which is why I believe it took so long to write it. So hopefully the others won't take as damn long. Won't take so damn long. The next arc is definitely my favorite arc. Water 7 is definitely my absolute favorite arc in all of One Piece, up to the point that I've gotten to. I've heard something about the tournament arc with the Mera no Mi, which, for those of you that don't know, which some of you probably don't, and don't make fun of anyone who doesn't, because some people just prefer English. Like me, I very much prefer the English, but I do know what it is in Japanese. At least I think it's called the Mera no Mi. But it was Ace's Devil Fruit. Mera no Mi is Ace's Devil Fruit. Pretty sure that's what it's called. I'm gonna look like an idiot if it's not. Yeah. So I've heard about, something about the Mera no Mi resurfacing, and then there's like a whole competition thing for it, which honestly sounds pretty interesting, but as of all the way to the what's it called, the Punk Hazard arc, which is as far as I've gotten in One Piece, because I only watch English because I can't stand the Japanese dub. So up until that point, Water 7 is my favorite arc in all of One Piece. Once, more English episodes start coming out, then that might change. But as of right now, Water 7. So yeah, let's just get into it. If you all, have your own favorite arc, leave it in the comments. I'm actually quite interested. I'm actually interested in what your favorite arc is, One Piece. Don't give me an entire paragraph about why it's your favorite arc, though. But anyway, you're not here for rants, unless you find me doing a what if a rant, but, whatever. You're not here for me to rant, you're here for a what if. If those things aren't mutually exclusive to you, then okay, no one cares. I'm just stalling now. Okay, now, straight into the video, let's go. As they set out to the other side of Jaya Island, Izuku started to think about Ace, and how he was now a part of the Whitebeard Pirates. Izuku knew that being a part of the Whitebeard Pirates made you Whitebeard's son, or daughter in some cases, which meant that Izuku and Bakugo were also Whitebeard's sons, since Ace was their brother. He kind of chuckled to himself at the realization, and he couldn't wait to meet the old pirate. Also, I have this note written down. I'm extremely sorry, but I forgot Vivi was a part of the crew. I forgot that I made Vivi a part of the crew when I was writing part 5. So you might have noticed that she was left out, and that would be the reason, because when I was writing part 5, I forgot she was a part of the crew. But I'll add her in. I added her in this part, so yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, moving on. This is gonna be a long-ass episode. But you already know that. Izuku and his crew had just started their short journey I swear I speak English, guys. Izuku and his crew had just started their short journey to the other side of Jaya Island when they ran into another salvage monkey. With stop it. Really putting a timestamp on this episode. The wizard, why? Why you gotta do that to me? Stop putting times. You're so timestamping this episode when I recorded it. Stop. You need to do the others. Now when look what you're doing to me, man. I ain't stopping and re-recording this. When they ran into another salvage monkey with hair that went down past his feet. Disgusting, I know. He claimed that he was going to be the next warlord of the sea, or one of the next warlords of the sea. Izuku got angry upon hearing this. It had been hard for him to control his anger ever since he'd eaten his devil fruit. He decided to speak up in his anger. So you were one of those pirates that gives up on your freedom to do whatever the world government wants you to, then? He looked up while releasing his Conqueror's Haki as an intimidation method, not to knock them out, just to scare them. Everyone on the ship was scared out of their diving suits. Literally. They were now only in their underwear, hugging each other out of fear. Oh my gosh, stop it. I fucking swear, man, I really need to learn how to... Sunshine, yeah, I'll be fine. Wizard! What did I say? Stop, man. I'm trying to record you. I'm leaving this in because I find it funny and I don't care. They were not... Izuku spoke up again. Izuku spoke again, and they did not have time to waste kicking the asses of worthless pirates that didn't stand a chance at becoming a warlord. Get out of my way. Our way, sorry, didn't mean to sound selfish there. We have a meeting with the man named Mont Blanc Cricket, as well as a salvage monkey named Mashira. So get out of our way or... The salvage monkey cut him off saying, "You know my brother? Wow. Why didn't you say so earlier? Let's head to Cricket's place together. I can show you a way to get there faster." Surfer dude. Izuku figured that this guy was just some salvage monkey, same as his brother, with dreams of being strong. But to Izuku and the members of his crew, they could only ever imagine it happening. Now, they made their way to Cricket's house. As the newer salvage monkey and the old salvage monkey they met earlier met them and introduced them to Mont Blanc Cricket. Izuku has some fun while talking to the salvage monkey brothers and getting to know them better, finding out that the only reason he wanted to become a warlord was to have the protection of the government so that he could salvage whatever he wanted without the fear of his crew being hurt because he wasn't strong enough to protect them. In telling him this, Izuku gained a bit of respect for the long-haired salvage monkey, no matter how disgusting he looked. After a bit, Izuku decided to start talking to Cricket about Sky Island, asking if he knew a way to get there. Mont Blanc raised a brow and said, "Are you serious?" as he chuckled. "Don't tell me you actually believe that place exists." Naomi looked like she was going to punch the man, but Katsuki restrained her. Izuku spoke up saying, "Let me tell you something I live by. You can't prove that something doesn't exist, but you can always prove that something does exist." Mont Blanc looked at the sea wolf. I'm just mixing it up here so I'm not constantly referring to people by their names, and so I'm going to sometimes refer to them by their, pirate nicknames. Back to the story. "You sure are right about that, kiddo. No one knows if the Sky Island exists. You could be the first ones to prove that it does. Well, the first ones that aren't considered liars by the entire globe." Cricket then goes on to explain the story of Noland, the liar, and how he was actually a very honest man, and his figurative fight with Nolan and the Mont Blanc name itself. He also goes on to explain why the Salvage Monkey Brothers joined him in his quest. After he was done, Izuku spoke up saying, "Look, all I want is to get to Sky Island, so do you have a way to get there or not?" I'm going to skip some stuff, or rather skim through some stuff, and hurry this along so that I can get through it as quick as possible, so, just saying. "Well, there is one way," he started to say. He goes through explaining everything he knows about Sky Island. I don't feel like retelling it because it's still the same. So Izuku's crew is just silent while Cricket explains. "The only way to get there is called the knock-up stream. It is a vertical current you could use to get to Sky Island. However, you're going to need a south bird, as the next knock-up stream is most likely to happen directly south of here. If my calculations are correct, which they normally are, well, you go and get those. We are going to fix up your ship to be more aerodynamic, so that it stands a chance of actually getting to the Sky Island, if it actually exists, that is." Usopp tries to protest, saying they'd have to be luckier than Lady Luck herself to survive the so-called knock-up stream. However, Izuku just nonchalantly says, "It's a good thing I have the devil's luck then." And May spoke up this time. "Hey, you are not working on my ship unless I am there to do it too. And absolutely no one touches my babies." The Salvage Monkeys and Cricket were confused. Izuku explains that she calls her inventions her babies, and how the ship has been upgraded with one of them. They start to think about how eccentric she really is, but that's just what Izuku likes about her. She's not afraid to say what's on her mind, no matter how crazy it might seem. That was one of the things that made things interesting in the captain's quarters at night, if you catch my drift. They agree to allow her to help them work on the ship, and Izuku goes to get a south bird. He easily gets one after transforming into his hybrid form, and comes back in less than an hour. When night comes, they throw a large party because there isn't a true pirate alive that doesn't like a party. Robin is reading through Nolan's logbook, which details his adventures when Cricket came up to her, quoting the last line written in the book. "The skull's right eye. That's where I saw the gold." This causes everyone to quiet down as he continues. "Those words were the last he ever wrote in the book before he was executed. I still don't know what he meant by that. It doesn't refer to a city or a landmark on the island." Izuku had spent his time looking at the map of Skypiea, trying to determine what they were going to do and if there was anything interesting to be done up there, just by looking at the map. So as he was looking at his map of Skypiea, and he saw the map of Jaya on the wall, he couldn't help but smirk. He stood up, causing everyone to look at him. Vivi was the first to speak up. "Izuku, what is it?" He didn't answer. He just walked over to the map and placed the map of Sky Island over the map of Jaya and said that's because he wasn't referring to either. so everyone can see that the two maps placed on top of each other formed a skull. He was talking about the island of Jaya itself. The city of Gold Noland Octopow didn't sink into the sea, but was blown into the sky, where it landed on Sky Island. My guess is that an absolutely gigantic knock-up stream blew that half of the island right into the sky, which means that all that gold is just sitting up there waiting to be found. What do you think, guys? Still want to move on to the next island? Or do you want to see what is up there? I'll bet we can find a poneglyph up there, too. As Robin heard this, she had made up her mind. She was going. Nami had definitely going for the thoughts of the treasure that lied in the sky. Izuku still continued, though. I bet there are machines up there that man can only dream of, too. I'm going, Mei shouted excitedly. But Izuku still went on. I'll bet there are some strong people to test your strength against, too. Zoro and Katsuki also jumped onto the bandwagon. However, Izuku was not done yet. I bet there will be new fruits and veggies that you have never seen before up there, too, as well as a variety of dishes that you never thought possible. Sanji was in it. As soon as this was said, Sanji was in. Itsuka and Setsuna were willing to go anywhere Izuku went to, no matter the danger. Vivi couldn't talk back, even though she was extremely afraid of what they were about to do. Izuku noticed and went to comfort her, telling her not to worry because no matter what happened, he'd be there to protect her. Ugh, long-ass paragraph. Okay, let's get into this. After that, the party soon ends and the salvage monkey and their crews, as well as Mei, start working on the ship to be more flight capable. Mei is really just there to make sure they don't mess up her baby. Blackbeard finds out that about Izuku's bounty and tries to chase after him as he believes that capturing him will get him his place on the 7 warlords. However, before he can even get close, the knock-up stream goes off and they're sent flying all the way up to Sky Island. However, as soon as they got there, Izuku got a bad feeling. His gut was telling him that the Mary was on her last legs, that she was a dead ship sailing. Hey, Katsuki? My gut is never wrong, is it? No. Why do you ask? Katsuki's voice laced with the slightest concern. Izuku whispered something that Bakugo could barely hear, that shook him to his very core. I hope it's wrong this time. These words alone shook Bakugo to his core. His captain Izuku, of all people, was afraid of something. He immediately started preparing for the worst types of combat, fearing that there was a threat up here that they were not ready to face just yet. Bakugo could not have been more wrong, though. Izuku did not have a bad feeling that there was something or someone here that they couldn't beat. No, it was something else. He needed to check something. He went downstairs, and he prayed to whatever god existed in this world that, for once, his gut was wrong. However, when he got to the bottom of the ship, he was met with his worst fear. His gut was right. The Mary's keel, the base of the ship, what it was built off of, the only thing that couldn't be repaired was cracked. And as long as they sailed, this small crack would continue to grow. Izuku started to scream internally, God damn it, why? Why now? I thought she could last longer than this. This can't be the end. It can't. Robin and Mei, being curious about what he was doing, went down to check on him. The rest were still calming themselves after the ride up to Sky Island. Some were fighting off large creatures that lived in the Sky Island's oceans. When Robin and May found him looking at the keel of the ship, both of them knew from the look on Izuku's face that the news wasn't good. Izuku looked up at the two girls and said with a straight face, "We don't tell anyone about this. Before she takes her final steps, the Mary will get us to where we need to go." Izuku stepped back out and recovered the hole in the floor that he had opened to be able to look at the keel. The girls agreed. The Mary was a big part of the crew, and she would not let them down that easily. Izuku just went to his captain's quarters and did his best not to smash everything. Then he heard a young female voice that spoke to him, saying, "Thank you for taking care of me. Thank you for believing in me. I will get you to where you need to be. This adventure will not be my last. It's my job as a part of this crew to make sure everyone makes it to the next island safely. As a part of this crew, I will not rest until we get to where we need to be." He turned around to see a young lady that was translucent blue color, only to see her fade away. It was at this point he could no longer hold it in, and Izuku started silently crying to himself. After a few minutes, he cleaned himself up to the point where no one could tell that he had been crying. Izuku had came back out of his room and went to the head of the ship and sat down. It's the usual spot, the figurehead of the ship, with its goat-like features and all. Everyone was breathing heavily, not because of the tension in the air was thick enough to be cut with a blade, but because the air was so thin. They were in the sky after all. About 6 hours had passed. Izuku was adept in adapting, so he was already used to the thin air. It's a good thing, too. As a man in a strange mask who looked like he was skating on the ocean of clouds and had a bazooka-looking thing, he was coming straight for them. Izuku quickly transformed and prepared the others who had yet to have their bodies adapt to the thin air. The man lunged at them in order to test their strength, but what he didn't expect was for the wolfman to punch him miles away, the point where he was almost knocked completely off the Sky Island. Or the oceans of the Sky Island, to be more specific. The man decided that fighting whatever that wolfman was would be as suicidal as fighting God, air quotes, all alone, and ran back to his village. The warrior might have been brave, but he was not foolish. A man clad in armor calling himself the Sky Knight came, telling them that the person that attacked them does that to everyone. Nami was berating the others for not doing anything before the Sky Knight spoke up. "It's not their fault. The air is extremely thin up here. They must not be used to it yet." Izuku had been looking at Nami like she was stupid, which, to be fair, she was. "Don't give me that look, Izuku." And why not? You think people can just get used to the air here that quickly? We're like 7,000 meters in the air, for God's sake. Izuku responded, "You did just fine, though." Well, she screamed in response. "That's because I adapt much faster than normal people. My grandfather used to force me to train with limited oxygen in the area. So I was already used to having a less than normal amount of oxygen," Izuku retorted. They then had a conversation with Sky Knight, in which he explained that there are other ways to get to Sky Island. Nami started shaking Izuku angrily. "Did you know there was another way existed? Did you know how to find it?" Izuku responded as he started to stand his ground. He was tired of Nami jumping to conclusions that were completely false, It's best that you did. It's best that you did. Had you traveled the other way, only 1 or 4 at most would have survived. But with the knock-up stream, it's either everyone survives or everyone dies. People these days are not willing to take that kind of all-or-nothing risk. Izuku looked at Nami with somewhat of a pissed-off look, saying, "See? Now stop jumping to conclusions and trust my gut. It's never been wrong. Has it, Katsuki?" "Not in the 7 years I've known you." "You guys should really start trusting our captain's instincts. Even when you feel like there is no one. And there's no way we are all coming out of something with our lives. Unless Izuku has said otherwise, then he already has a plan for us to get us out of there alive," Katsuki answered. With that, the Sky Knight left, dropping a whistle behind him, as his bird turned into a horse with wings and flew off into the distance. "Looks like that bird thing ate a devil fruit," Izuku stated before getting used to the air quicker. The others were getting used to the air quicker than normal people. Usopp tried to suggest going out, but Chopper said no. Suggest going up, but Chopper said no. "Going any higher before we get used to how thin the air is here would not help us at all. We should leave in the morning after we've all adjusted," Izuku agreed as he stayed out on watch duty. While Izuku was sitting in his usual spot, just watching to see if anyone else was stupid enough to attack them, both May and Robin came out to check on him. They were worried about him. It was more May than Robin because she had a more intimate relationship with Izuku. They went up to Izuku and hugged him from behind, saying that he needed to get some sleep and that they could take things from here. Izuku reluctantly went to his room, only to have to slip his way into his bed silently as Vivi, Nami, and Sue were all on his bed asleep already. As he got into bed, all 3 girls got closer to him. Once they were all settled, they looked extremely peaceful as the rest of the night went by uneventful. What percentage am I at? It's not 61. Damn. Okay. The next morning, they all got up, and everyone was at least able to walk around and breathe properly. Kirishima, Bakugo, Zoro, Itsuka, Setsuna, Izuku, and even Vivi, Sue, and Kyoga are all training to increase their strength. It's back to what it normally would be at sea level. This went on for no more than an hour before the only ones left standing were Kirishima, Bakugo, Zoro, and Izuku. I just realized I left Sanji out when writing the script. Let's just pretend Sanji's there too. And he'd also be still standing, even though he would be breathing heavily. They rested as someone saw a gate in the distance. Gonna go Usopp on this one. Usopp saw a gate in the distance that had a waterfall behind it. And they started to make their way there while everyone rested. When they got there, they met an old lady who asked why they were there. Izuku said that they were there for sightseeing. It wasn't a total lie. She asked for 1 million extol per person. Izuku asked her what extol was in berries. She says that every 10 million berries is equal to 1,000. Sorry. I wrote that so wrong. Every 10 million extol is equal to 1,000 berries. Izuku went down to one of the now dubbed treasure rooms instead of, storage rooms. They're treasure rooms now because that's their only thing they're filled with. And gathered a perfectly estimated amount of gold and pays the fees. So, in this, they won't be wanted on the Sky Islands. They then make their way, well, at least on the beginning, they then make their way up into the next layer of the Sky Island, known as Skypiea. They hold on tightly to their ship as a giant monster grabs their ship and starts to speed its way up the waterfall-looking thing and into Skypiea. Okay, I'm going to start skimming through this arc. As I said before, it's my least favorite arc. So if I miss something, I'm sorry, but rewatching this arc was like torture because of all the filler in it. Or at least what I felt like filler. They just really stretched this arc out like way more than they needed to. But yeah. So back into the story. They make their way into Skypiea and meet up with Konus and her father. They learn about sky warfare, which Mei, Izuku, Bakugo, Usopp, and Vivi pick up on how all the different dials work, like within a day. By the end of the day, they know what they're doing. The next morning, they bought as many dials as they thought necessary. Basically, they have all the dials that Usopp had when they left Skypiea times 3, because Mei wanted a lot of them, and Izuku felt like she would break them while experimenting. After the shopping was done, they tried out using the waver. When Izuku rode the waver, it was like he was a pro. Almost like he had done it before. Izuku made his way to the other half of Jaya without even realizing it. Once he saw the dirt and absolutely giant trees, he knew he had found the other half of Jaya. He knew where he was. He ran into 4 people who started to pick a fight with him when he transformed. Meanwhile, Konus started to get worried that he had traveled to the upper yard. With good reason too, as he was there. Konus went on to explain that the upper yard was holy land and that the god, air quotes, Eneru, lived there and struck down anyone with his divine judgment who would dare stand against him. Izuku was dodging... Now, with Izuku, he was dodging their attacks as they came from left, right, and center with minimal movement to conserve energy, while all of them barely dodged his attacks because of his high amounts of speed. Sure, they had seen his attacks coming with their mantra, but he was just too fast. Izuku was starting to get tired of this and started moving as fast as he possibly could in his hybrid form, which ended with him breaking the sound barrier. His speed was unmatched by any of them. As they did not have their trials set up in the area, his movement was unimpaired, and none of the 4 people he was fighting had the speed to dodge him. They could barely dodge him before, but now they were barely able to see his after images. He used his Fenrir rocket fist to knock out each of them far into the forest. The man with the bird died upon impact with the tree, while the others were only knocked unconscious. He had time, so he went up to the man with the bird after fighting the fire-breathing bird and transforming into his full Fenrir state for a minute. And biting its throat and ripping it out, letting out a howl that could be heard by the rest of his crew. Bakugo started screaming to get on the ship and that they were going to the upper yard. And the others listened as they all knew that howl meant that Izuku had let loose and was in his full Fenrir state. When he spit it out, he found a flame dial inside what was left of the bird's throat as he transformed back into his hybrid form. As he searched the body of the fallen priest, he found a spear that had a button on the side that made the spear heat up. He assumed this meant it was powered by heat dial. Yeah, heat dial. And then the one found inside the bird's throat was a flame dial. Yeah. That was when he heard lightning far above him, forming above him. He quickly ate a rumble ball and transformed into his lightning god form. And took it like it was nothing. And it was. After all, he was immune to lightning while in this form. And used his observation hockey to see who did that, believing that it was a devil fruit user, which he wasn't wrong. He found that no one other than the unconscious priest and some Shandorians, even though he didn't know what they were called, coming to invade the island. The Shandorians easily took out the priests that were still asleep. By this time, Own had woken up and gone on to his dog and started rushing towards God's sanctuary. Now, Izuku closely followed behind him in hopes of finding who sent that lightning at him. The bald dog owner was too injured to use his observation hockey, so he didn't realize that he was being followed. At this point, Izuku transformed back into his hybrid state as the rumble ball had worn off. He ended up following Ohm for several hours until he got back to, God's sanctuary. By this time, Izuku's crew had already made their way to Giant Jack, and so had the Shandorians. And they started... This is a messed up part of the script. Now, when they encountered the Shandorians at the bottom of Giant Jack, Kirishima took the hits as Kyoka would warn everyone of incoming attacks. Bakugo uses consecutive explosions from the palms of his hands before doing one large explosion with both the palms of his hands while shouting, "Consecutive explosive blast." It's basically Vegeta's consecutive energy blast. If, I haven't seen all of Dragon Ball, or Dragon Ball Z. I've seen all of Dragon Ball, but not all of Dragon Ball Z. But I did watch someone play Dragon Ball Z Kai, and I believe that was what the move was called. Anyway, moving on. While the Shandorians are using dials to create clouds, which they rode on to avoid attacks as well as land them, Sanji was using Tempest Kicks to knock them out of the sky. Itsuko got really large and just smacked them away. Setsuna was helping to keep the numbers more or less equal. Usopp was sniping people out of the sky. Kyoko was using her new weapons to send sound waves that incapacitated them, while Mei activated the arms on the side of the ship. Don't ask questions. I never said that they would stay attached to the ship. So, just saying. It's not like the arms could, work as legs and the ship could go aboard land. Yeah, it's totally not like that's what's happening. Yes, it is. Soon after, the Shandorians started to retreat, figuring that they weren't going to win this battle today. Or ever. Back with Izuku, he had followed Ohm back to, God's shrine. Air quotes. Eneru killed Ohm as soon as he got there, as he knew that Ohm had been followed. It has been a few hours since he took the last Rumble Ball, and he was ready to take another. Because for those of you who don't know, the effects Basically, Izuku can withstand taking 5 Rumble Balls in quick succession. All of these Rumble Balls last for 10 minutes. Now, if he were to take 1 Rumble Ball, then wait an hour, he'd still be able to take 5 Rumble Balls. If he were to take 2 Rumble Balls, wait an hour, he'd be able to take 4 more Rumble Balls. So it'd be like every hour, weight goes down. Basically, if you understand that meaning. I can't explain it any better than that, so I'm not going to try. Okay, fine. Okay, now. So he'd have a total of 15 minutes before he started to lose control of his transformations. That being said, Izuku popped another Rumble Ball into his mouth and prepared to fight. Now entering his Lightning God form once more, so that he wouldn't have to worry about the lightning attacks coming from this person, calling himself God. The 2 Devil Fruit users were just staring at each other down as a lightning storm appeared above them, lightning sparking everywhere. The Shandorians and Izuku's crew see this and immediately know that is where they need to go. So they start climbing up Giant Jack as quickly as possible. Izuku covered his entire body in armament haki and rushed towards Eneru at the speed of lightning. Because lightning isn't as fast as the speed of light, so there is a difference. Eneru could do nothing with his lightning as he had to rely on his physical attacks, while Izuku was in this form was on par with speed, much stronger in terms of physical strength, especially with his armament haki. However, Eneru's observation haki is on par with Kyoka's observation haki, and therefore is always one step ahead of Izuku at all times. However, Izuku's stamina was much greater than Eneru's, as Eneru never really trained much in the whole physical department, as he thought his devil fruit abilities that made him godly, air quotes, would be enough to take down anyone. As Eneru started to slow down, as Izuku is now pushing Eneru to go all out for 45 minutes straight. While popping Rumble Balls immediately after one's duration ends, he now only has 5 minutes left of his invulnerability to lightning. But now he is actually landing blows, as Eneru never trained his stamina, as I said earlier. At this time, the Shandorians and Izuku's crew showed up at the same time to see Izuku fighting in his lightning form with his entire body infused with haki. The Shandorians looked on in shock at the Beastman thing that seemed to generate lightning just like Eneru, and was fighting and defeating Eneru as he looked like a bloody mess. No one dared to intervene. This was when Izuku had landed one final blow, which sent Eneru flying beneath the clouds and into the blue sea below, where he drowned. Everyone stood shocked at the sight. None of them had their doubts that Eneru was dead, killed by a blue sea person. The Shandorians didn't know what to think. Izuku had looked up Giant Jack. I think that was the large beanstalk's name. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it was Giant Jack, though. And Speed climbed the damn thing, as he knew it grew out of the right eye of the island. When he got up to the top, which didn't take more than 2 minutes, as he used his godly super strength and made his way down, as he used his godly super strength to pick up the giant bell he found on top. Like I said, his gut was never wrong. As he made it down in another 2 minutes, and he put the bell down, he rang it for Cricket to hear. The Shandorians were going to attack him when they heard his crew saying how Mont Blanc could rest easy knowing that the City of Gold and the bell Noland talked about wasn't a lie. Izuku detransforms with slight blood dripping from his head, but is healing quickly. Really, it's just there for the aesthetic. As he sits down and looks at the poneglyph, if that is on the bell. As he says, "Hey, Robin." And "What is it, Captain?" Robin replied. Says, "Tell me if I'm reading this wrong, but this talks about the ancient weapon Poseidon and where to find it, right?" The Shandorians are all surprised that he could read the ancient characters, but none were more surprised than his own crew. "When, and more importantly, how did you learn how to read poneglyphs, Izuku?" Robin answered, using his name instead of his title, so you could tell she was really serious. "I didn't read it. The words just spoke to me. Like it was telling me what was written, without me actually knowing the characters. The best way I could put it is that it was like the universe itself was speaking to me." They were even more surprised, not by that, but by what he said next. "It would seem that Gold D. Roger was the same, or perhaps he knew the ancient characters, since his name is inscribed right over there in the gold." They all looked and could see the poneglyph-like markings engraved in the gold, as Izuku was barely conscious at this point. That battle had tested his limits, that's for sure. He knew that things would only get harder from here, and that he needed to be faster. He needed to be able to control his full Fenrir form. Robin ends up coming to the same realization that she did in canon. They still get the gold they get more gold and refill their ship with all different sorts of necessities. Getting a few more thiles from the people, thinking that they deserve it, and they're not going to pass it up if it makes them feel better. Plus, free stuff. However, okay, now, as they went down, they go down the same way, only this time, they don't end up in the marine base. It's because Izuku's not stupid and no one goes bouncing on the octopus, releasing the air from it. However, and they head on their way to the next island. However, on their way, they find a small ring of islands, where they decide to stop for a bit and check it out. When they look around, they find everything is either taller or longer than it should be. Eventually, they found the old man walking on bamboo sticks, while a pirate called Foxy anchored right next to the Going Merry, stopping it from leaving where it was anchored. Foxy was already on the island and found Izuku. The group helps the old man reunite with his long-necked horse, when they are suddenly attacked by the pirate known as Foxy. Izuku didn't like the look of his face, or his attitude. What he did like, though, were the two girls that were with him. Both of them gave off this aura of strength, not in the weird sexual ways you perverts. One was extremely tanned with toned legs and rabbit ears, while the other was more slim and had blonde hair. It had this draconic aura about her. There were people Izuku would want on his crew, and would definitely be joining his crew if he had anything to say about it. And judging by the fact that they looked like they were forced to be standing with the guy, Izuku was going to find a way to get them to join his crew, one way or another, even if it meant killing this man. At that moment, Foxy challenges him to a Davy back fight. Izuku is not as clueless as Luffy is in canon. So he knows what that is, and he still accepts it as he wants those girls with the powerful auras in his crew. Usopp was there with Luffy and tried to protest, but it was too late. He had already agreed. They settled on 3 fights. Nami and the others still have the same argument with the Foxy Pirates. Foxy is extremely cocky and thinks that he's going to win all of the matches. But he's not. The first match is a race on the sea where all the members of the cannon crew participate, including Izuku, obviously, as he's the captain. Now, this would go by rather quickly, as Izuku made a surfboard out of the 3 barrels he was given, and used his hybrid form as he kicked off the air using Moonwalk, forcing him to go at extremely high speeds. This catches the eyes of the tan girl with extremely muscular legs, since, she starts to think that he might be even stronger than her, and she hoped that he would ask her to join his crew so that she could train with someone stronger than her and make herself more powerful as a result. In less than 5 minutes, Izuku was already at the finish line. Foxy tried to use his slow beam, but it was too late. Izuku had already finished. With this victory under his belt, he asked for the pirates to return the horse. This act of kindness, instead of selfishness, caught the attention of the girl that had the draconic aura. It had been a while since she had met a pirate like him. The last one she saw was her former captain, who lost his life in a Davy-back fight against Foxy. This causes her to want to be in Izuku's crew, as he was actually a kind person, and, well, she just didn't like Foxy. After all, he killed her captain, and, would boyfriend be the right word? I don't feel like it's the right word when, you're talking about pirates, but whatever. She was dating her former captain, but then he died in the fight with Foxy. Anyway, moving on. The second game was a ball game where Kirishima, Sanji, Bakugo, Zoro, Itsuka, and Chopper had to force the other team's ball. It was really just a ball strapped to one of the opposing team members' heads. In Foxy's case, the ball was strapped to their half-giant, half-fishman crewmate. In Izuka's case, it was strapped to Itsuka, who is in her giant form. This battle would go fairly easily. Even though the Foxy Pirates were cheating by using weapons, Izuku wasn't bothered by it in the least, although the same could not be said for some of the members of his crew. Kirishima just used armament hockey to break all of their weapons and knocking them out with a single blow. After all, his punches packed more heat than Izuku's did, at least when relying solely on armament hockey. While Bakugo, Sanji, and Zoro had to work together to knock the giant fishman off its feet, Bakugo doing an explosion underneath its feet while it tried to stomp on him, sending it flying into the air. This caused, Bakugo to have large amounts of pain in his arms, but it worked out in the end. And they ended up winning the game, as Sanji kicked the giant fishman's head with a hockey-infused kick as he landed into the goal, as they won the game. It had become clear to Foxy he had no idea just how powerful Izuku's crew was. He thought that Izuku with a bounty of 400 million, Bakugo with a bounty of 130 million, and Zoro with a bounty of 125 million, the only 3 who had bounties that they knew of, as Robin's wanted poster had not been updated since she was extremely young. So he thought they were the only strong ones, but that had been proven wrong with this battle. Some of them just hadn't been. noticed yet. Izuku decided to take the blonde girl with the draconic aura that looked like she didn't want to be there. He could tell that she was happy using his observation haki, even though she did absolutely nothing to physically express her happiness. She just walked over to him and pledged her loyalty, as was customary for someone who transferred crews as a result of a Davy back fight. Now, the next was the final game, which happened to be a roller skating race, or a race on roller skates. The people participating would be Izuku, Kyoka, who's I imagine would be really good on roller skates, so she is going to be really good on roller skates, Usopp, Robin, and finally Mei. This would go extremely different than it did in canon, as Izuku would transform into his hybrid form for the entirety of the race, easily being faster than anyone else on the field. Kyoka, being good on roller skates, and no one would dare to get near her, as Izuku was basically puppy guarding her. With Usopp's round, it would go more or less the same as Kyoka's round, ending with the Seawolf Pirates' victory, and with the best out of 5 would be declared the winners of the game. This has put Foxy into his normal state of depression. Izuku then chose the last crew member he wanted, being the tanned girl with the muscular legs and bunny ears. They started to leave when Foxy tried to challenge them to another Davy back fight, but Izuku refused, saying he no longer had a reason to do a Davy back fight. They walked towards their ship and got aboard after forcing Foxy's ship out of their way so that they could leave. Once they set sail, the 2 new members of the crew introduced themselves. The blonde was called Ryuko Tatsuma. She was rather shy about her introduction for some reason. Kyoka, Mei, and Izuku could tell with their observation haki that it was a mixture of love and nostalgia. As Izuku reminded her of someone she used to love, it was pretty easy for them to connect those dots. The tanned girl with the rabbit ears said her name was Rumi Usagiyama. I think I'm saying that correctly. She was more energetic about her introduction, in a way that sounded like she wanted to fight Izuku, even if only to test her own strength. Really, she just wanted to see how she fared against Izuku, who she felt was holding back during the Davy back fight. Well, she wasn't wrong about that. And he did hold back even for his hybrid form. He was holding back because he didn't use Shave the entire time. He relied on natural speed instead of speed gained through technique. I'm still recording, right? Oh, thank God. It's been 2 whole months since the whole Davy back fight, and everyone has gotten to know Rumi and Ryuko. Ryuko tends to be like Sue and spends most of her time with Izuku since he makes her feel comfortable. Izuku tends to get into large-scale sparring matches with Rumi, where in the end, somehow they end up sleeping together. Whether it was because she liked strong men like Izuku, most certainly was, or because she liked his determination. Well, it's probably a bit of both, but if you asked me, what I think sealed the deal is that instead of lording his strength over her, he treated her like she was an equal. No, like she was better than he was. She never let that go to her head, though, as she never won once in any of their sparring matches. They ended up like rabbits. As a result of her being in her hybrid form all the time, she acted a lot more like a rabbit, more specifically a rabbit during mating season, but that's besides the point. Now, the Going Merry in its damaged state could be seen alongside an island, or coming up to alongside an island. They didn't dare, go inland, as they didn't need to. However, Izuku had a bad feeling that something was going to happen that night, and that they should stay awake. Some shrugged off his feeling like the idiots that they were. The ones who listened to him were Rumi, Ryuko, she really just didn't want to leave his side. Sue, same reason as Ryuko. Kyoka, Robin, Itsuka, Setsuna, Bakugo, Kirishima, Sanji, Chopper, who is just being paranoid, Mei, and Vivi, as well as everyone else except Usopp, Nami, and Zoro, in case I'm forgetting anybody. Now, only Usopp, Nami, and Zoro brushed off his bad feeling like it was nothing. Zoro just wanted to sleep, though. But as time would tell, his gut feelings were never wrong. To be continued. Oh my gosh. Like, seriously. That was... wow. Okay. I hope you guys all enjoyed this part, and now are willing to wait another week for the next one. Yay! Yay! Because that's probably how long it's gonna take for me to write the next one. But yes, this is it. And, Happy New Year's, guys. 2020 is over. Though why people are, happy that 2020 is over is like, you do realize the end of 2020 isn't going to be the end of Corona, right? Like, this is probably going to be, like, going on for, like, several years. You do realize how long it takes for a vaccine to be created. Like, an actual effective vaccine, it takes years for it to be created. But I'm just stating fact here. Like, you guys should be informed. It actually does take a really long time to make a vaccine, especially for something that you've never seen before, especially with something that continues to adapt. At least from what I know, it's basically like the flu, which has many different strands, and therefore it's hard to cover all of the bases. But yeah, so enough with that. Anyway, hope you guys hope all you little firecrackers enjoyed. This has been Blazing What Ifs, blazing away.